Witness, if you will. John Rolfe, 24 years old, overweight, nerdy, terrible at impersonating Ron Serling. A man consumed with a desire, possessed to play through a game that's been sitting in his Steam library for 3 years. But soon, he's going to learn that this desire, this possession, will drive him down a road of mystery and darkness.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of JroPlays. I really wanted my first review to be on something, like Soul Calibur 6. Something new, something at least somewhat relevant, but it's the Halloween times. Best time of the year, so I got my most pumpkiniest shirt on, and I got to work. So let me take you back to the far-off year of 2010, when the gaming studio Remedy Entertainment had an idea. No, not for an original, exciting horror game, but they had the idea that they'd team up with Xbox Studios and make a lot of money. So they played a few horror games, ripped their favorite parts out of each of them, threw in some Stephen King, a dash of Secret Window, and BAM! Alan Wake was born. In all honesty, as far as horror games go, it's far from the worst I've encountered, but aside from its commercial success and positive reception, I just never really understood the following or the hype that it has. So let's dig deeper into the darkness of this mystery.
A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman tiptoes to my room every night, and just to sprinkle stardust.
There's not much really to talk about in regards to the story of Alan Wake, especially without giving away any spoilers, which I'm trying to refrain from doing, just because I do think it's interesting enough that if you haven't yet, and you're a fan of horror games the way that I am, it's worth at least a playthrough. At its core, Alan Wake is a writer brought by his wife to the town of Bright Falls, where he accidentally awakens the darkness, an evil that is hunting him. Through shadow monsters possessing the townsfolk, Hitchcockian birds attacking him, and literally having a possessed car thrown at him, Alan has to work to find his wife, who's been taken by somebody for some reason. As far as horror stories go, it's pretty generic, and in games where they have the whole, this person is so important to the protagonist, you have to save them, that doesn't really work. It didn't work in Fallout 4, it doesn't work in Alan Wake. You don't develop emotional bonds with these characters, so you don't actually care about them, and that's important. It's the difference between running through the game to save a character you really want to save, and thusly doing something you want to do, and, well, I guess I'll save the stupid girlfriend because the game told me to do it. But really, the thing that bugs me story-wise the most is the manuscripts. And throughout the game you find these pages of a manuscript that Wake wrote while in the middle of a blackout, and they foretell the future, which is interesting in theory, but more than not it just spoils things that otherwise could have been really interesting plot points or actually twists.
I had to give you a sedative. Don't fight it. You went through another rough period. Right now it's very important that you stay calm. We don't want you to have another episode.
Hartman, I fell. I had to give you a sedative. Don't fight it. You went through another rough period.
What?
Right now it's very important that you stay calm. We don't...
And I suppose the intent was to give the player this idea of, well, how did we get here? But the story itself's so generic and predictable, so most of the time you know exactly how you're gonna get there. It just kinda feels like a waste. Moving on to the setting of the game, this is kinda where Alan Wake really shines for me. Everything is really dark and foreboding, and there's really a sense of unease. It's shown more through its really clever and creepy sound design than the really dull, deep, dark forest setting of Bright Falls, which feels oddly familiar. There's also a good use of really surreal camera work, which, come to think of it, also feels a little bit familiar. Overall, I'm fine with this, though. The woods are creepy and they feel hostile, and you legitimately get excited when you see something even small. A streetlight that hasn't blown out yet, or the far-off glow of a gas station's neon sign. You feel like you're somewhere you shouldn't be. That all being said, the only problem with the environment is that you never truly feel in peril. Enemies are generally pretty easy and predictable. The map layout is linear and you have radar directing you, so you never really have that feeling of being helpless and lost in the woods. Whenever you feel lost, you just look at the HUD and, oh, there you go.
Come here, pretty please, can you tell me where I am?
What can I say? Mechanically, game plays tight. Control feels smooth, targeting is easy enough, and even the flashlight gimmick works, if only feeling tedious sometimes. The only thing that felt really wonky was the dodge mechanic. Sometimes it seemed to go, or not go at random, essentially making it useless.
Other than that, though, shooting feels good, and taking down groups of enemies can be rewarding. Especially when you're fighting something crazy, like, I don't know, a fucking bulldozer? Mostly, though, other than special situations like that, the combat feels really repetitive and a little short on variety. It also just doesn't have the same tension that other horror games achieve, and I know that's due to one single thing.
The enemies, being entities of the shadow, just kind of appear, and it makes me think of games like Dead Space or Amnesia, where it truly feels like you're constantly being hunted, and every noise or shadow you see is a constant threat. And on the flip side, there's games like Resident Evil or The Suffering, where you aren't exactly being hunted, but you know that around every corner is the threat of death. Everything must be approached carefully and slowly, and this tension is what makes a horror game a horror game. Alan Wake kind of fails at this, due to it never feeling like you're really being hunted. It never feels like something waiting in the shadows. It's just, hey, enemy here now. How's it going? Hope you don't got no flash. Oh god, you do have that! And that isn't tension, it's just waiting for stuff to happen. It's more annoying than scary. So, is Alan Wake a bad game? No. As far as horror games are concerned, I'd call it a pinnacle of adequacy. It's a decent game, it's got good controls, and a pretty interesting environment, and a story that's it's just interesting enough that you want to see how it ends, even if the game does feel a little slow-paced and repetitive once in a while. It's worth a playthrough, I'd say, but once you get through it, I don't really see much of a reason to run through it again. There's no alternate endings, the game plays exactly the same, so as far as replay value goes, I don't really see it there. But that's really all I have to say about it. It's not the worst horror game I played, it's certainly not the best.
Thank you so much for watching the first episode of JroPlays. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. Also tell your friends, being a new channel and all that's kind of huge. I'm going to do my best to update weekly, so look forward to new content and reviews. And if there's a game you want me to review, well then just let me know below. And other than that, have a spooky Halloween, everyone.
Spooky, scary skeletons. Boop-a-doo-doop-doop-doodle-doo.
We're so sorry, skeletons, you're so misunderstood.
Bow!
I don't think we should.
No!
Spooky, scary skeleton.
What?
That's all I know of that song.
Yeah.
Alright. We're done.
Cool.